Arena Magnus did not whisper. It roared. The planet had been shaped by impact craters and reinforced by design, its largest cities built in concentric circles around colossal combat arenas that gleamed under twin suns. From orbit, the world looked like a series of metallic scars stitched deliberately into stone. From the ground, it felt like standing inside a heartbeat that never slowed. Dominic Cole stood in the center of the grand proving ring and wondered, not for the first time, how he had agreed to this. Above him, gravitic projectors shimmered, maintaining a transparent dome that filtered the harsh solar radiation into a golden haze. Tier upon tier of spectators filled the arena's curved walls. Warriors in ceremonial armor, civilians draped in clan colors, dignitaries seated in elevated dignified. Dominic rolled his shoulders dignified. Dominic rolled his shoulders once, loosening them. He wore no armor, no ceremonial plating, just fitted training attire reinforced with subtle kinetic dampeners. His hands were bare. A voice boomed through the arena's acoustic amplifiers. "Honored citizens of Magnus," it announced, "today we witness an exchange of disciplines. Our champion, Rexus of the Iron Lineage, faces trainer Dominic Cole of Terra." A ripple of restrained amusement passed through the crowd at the word trainer. Dominic caught it. He exhaled through his nose. "Good start," he muttered. Across the ring, Rexus stepped forward. The champion of Magnus was taller by half a head, built like the statues carved into the city's outer walls. His armor was ceremonial but functional, etched with faint luminescent lines that pulsed in rhythm with his breathing. He removed his helm slowly, revealing a face sharp and composed, eyes carrying the quiet certainty of someone who had never been decisively beaten. Rexus inclined his head just enough to satisfy protocol. "Trainer," he said, voice amplified by a subtle vocal modulator embedded at his collar. "Champion," Dominic replied. The exchange was technically respectful. The tone was not. High above in the royal viewing platform suspended by anti-grav pylons, Queen Vara watched. She did not lean forward. She did not gesture. She simply observed. She appeared almost entirely human, poised, elegant, her dark hair woven back in a practical yet regal arrangement. Her expression was measured, intelligent, faintly curious. Only the long, graceful ears rising from her temples set her apart, curving slightly upward and back, catching the filtered sunlight like delicate arcs of silver. She studied Dominic not as spectacle, but as anomaly. The announcer's voice returned. "This demonstration shall follow sanctioned parameters. No lethal force, no enhancement fields. Technique over dominance." Dominic almost smiled at that. Technique over dominance. He flexed his fingers. Rexus stepped into stance, precise and polished. Every movement was textbook Magnus form, balanced, symmetrical, efficient. His weight distribution was flawless. Dominic shifted his stance slightly off-center. Not flawed, just different. The signal tone chimed. Rexus advanced first as expected. His opening strike was a controlled palm thrust, aimed not to injure but to display structure. Dominic deflected lightly, redirecting the force rather than meeting it. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Rexus followed with a sweeping kick, elegant and technically perfect. Dominic stepped just outside its arc, not dramatically, just enough. "You hesitate," Rexus said quietly between movements. "I observe," Dominic replied. Rexus's next combination was faster, sharper, a flurry designed to showcase Magnus' discipline. Dominic absorbed, redirected, yielded where necessary. The crowd's reaction shifted from anticipation to mild confusion. There were no dramatic impacts, no thunderous collisions, just two bodies moving within inches of one another, one executing refined patterns, the other dissolving them gently. Rexus stepped back briefly, recalibrating. "You fight as though retreat is victory," he said. "I fight as though not being hit is useful," Dominic answered. A few scattered laughs rose from the lower tiers. Rexus's jaw tightened slightly. He advanced again, this time increasing pressure. His strikes were still within agreed parameters, but the intent sharpened. Dominic felt it. "Ah," he thought. "There it is." A straight strike came in, faster, less ceremonial. Dominic slipped to the outside, guiding Rexus's arm past him. His own hand tapped lightly against the champion's shoulder. Not a strike, just contact. A point. The arena screens flashed a small indicator. Rexus's eyes narrowed. You rely on evasion, he said. I rely on options, Dominic replied. From the royal platform, Vera's gaze sharpened. She had seen countless matches. She recognized the shift in rhythm when something subtle was happening. Rexus changed tactics. He stepped closer than before, closing the gap aggressively. His elbow drove toward Dominic's ribs, followed by a pivot meant to trap and destabilize. Dominic did not block. He collapsed inward, stepping into Rexus's space rather than away from it. His shoulder nudged under Rexus's center line, his foot hooking behind the champion's heel in a movement so small it almost went unnoticed. Rexus's balance shifted, just slightly. Dominic withdrew before capitalizing. The crowd reacted this time, a collective intake of breath. Rexus steadied, but something in his posture had altered. You were fortunate, he said. Gravity is impartial, Dominic replied. A flicker of irritation crossed Rexus's face. He circled, adjusting stance. Dominic could feel the shift in energy. The match was no longer purely demonstration. Pride had entered the ring. High above, Vara leaned forward a fraction of an inch. She had invited a technical exhibition. She was beginning to suspect she had invited something else. Rexus lunged again, faster, abandoning some of the ornamental precision for raw acceleration. His fist cut through the air toward Dominic's jaw. Dominic stepped inside the arc. Not back, inside. His forearm slid along Rexus's wrist, redirecting the momentum. His other hand pressed lightly at the champion's elbow, while his hip turned just enough to disrupt alignment. It was not dramatic. It was efficient. Rexus stumbled half a step, caught himself, and disengaged. The crowd's murmur deepened. Dominic exhaled slowly. He had not attacked. He had simply refused to play the script. From the royal platform, Vera's expression shifted. Not to anger, not to alarm, to interest. Her long ears angled slightly forward, a subtle sign of focus. She had expected a display of form. Instead, she was witnessing something quieter. Rexus reset his stance, breathing controlled but heavier than before. You are not fighting the way you were instructed, he said. Dominic tilted his head. I was instructed to demonstrate technique, he replied. And this is not Magnus technique, Rexus said. No, Dominic agreed calmly. It isn't. The arena hummed with tension. Twin suns casting golden light across polished stone and bare hands. And somewhere between the precision of tradition and the practicality of survival, the first crack in certainty had begun to form. The crack in certainty widened when Rexus stopped trying to impress the audience. Dominic saw it in the champion's shoulders first. The ornamental precision was still there, but it tightened, compressed into something less theatrical and more personal. The match was meant to display technique. It was quietly becoming a correction. The arena screens magnified every breath, every bead of sweat catching the filtered sunlight under the gravitic dome. Twin suns burned above the transparent shield, their light diffused into a molten gold haze that made every movement look deliberate. Rexus stepped forward again, this time without preamble. His opening strike came faster than before. No flourish, no extended chamber. A direct palm thrust aimed squarely at Dominic's sternum. Dominic shifted slightly off-center, letting the force slide past his ribs. His fingers brushed Rexus's wrist in passing, feeling tension travel up the forearm like a wire pulled too tight. You adjust, Rexus said quietly. I prefer staying unbroken, Dominic replied. A low rumble of amusement rippled through the lower tiers. Rexus did not appreciate it. He followed with a low sweep designed to destabilize. It was textbook Magnus form, clean, controlled, devastating when it landed. Dominic hopped back just enough to avoid the sweep, then stepped in again before Rexus could reset. He tapped the champion's chest lightly with 2 fingers. Another point. The display flashed. Rexus's jaw tightened. Your movements are inelegant, he said. Thank you, Dominic answered. That earned a louder reaction from the crowd. High above, Queen Vera did not smile, but her gaze had sharpened into something analytical. Her long ears angled forward slightly, catching the ambient hum of the arena, as though filtering more than sound. Rexus changed tactics again. He circled wider this time, forcing Dominic to pivot. The polished stone floor beneath them adjusted microscopically, kinetic dampeners recalibrating to maintain balance parameters for both combatants. "Do you intend to evade for the entire demonstration?" Rexus asked. Dominic shrugged lightly. "I'm happy to continue disappointing you." The champion lunged. This time it was not a single strike, but a sequence. Fist, elbow, knee, each flowing into the next with lethal efficiency, barely restrained by the demonstration rules. The speed was impressive, even to Dominic. He moved, not backward, never backward in a straight line. He stepped diagonally, then inward, letting Rexus's own momentum compress against him. His forearm caught the elbow mid-transition, not to block, but to redirect. His shoulder dipped under the knee, absorbing it at an angle. For a heartbeat, their bodies were almost parallel. Dominic shifted his weight. Rexus's stance fractured. It was subtle. To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing more than a misstep. To Dominic, it was an invitation. He hooked his heel behind Rexus's lead ankle while his hand pressed lightly against the champion's hip. The world tilted. Rexus hit the arena floor hard enough to send a vibration through the kinetic dampeners. The crowd fell silent. Dominic did not follow through with a strike. He stepped back immediately, hands open. Rexus rolled to his feet in one fluid motion, pride intact but rattled. "You exploit imbalance," he said. "I wait for it," Dominic corrected. The arena's atmospheric controls hummed faintly, compensating for the collective intake of breath. Rexus advanced again, faster now, irritation sharpening his precision. His next strike aimed for Dominic's jaw. Closer, more personal. Dominic did not deflect. He stepped inside. His left hand caught Rexus's wrist. His right forearm pressed against the inside of the champion's elbow. He rotated, not dramatically, just enough to align their centers. Rexus's arm locked against his own body. For half a second, they stood in a frozen tableau. Then Dominic shifted his hips. Rexus's balance collapsed. The champion hit the ground again, this time flat on his back. Dominic followed, not with a blow, with a pin. His knee pressed lightly against Rexus's shoulder. His hand hovered inches from the champion's throat, not touching. The arena screens flashed the dominance indicator. Elapsed time, 00:47. Silence engulfed the grand proving ring. Twin suns burned above them. Dominic could hear his own breathing. Rexus's chest rose and fell beneath him, stunned not by pain but by the abruptness of it. Dominic leaned slightly closer, keeping his voice low enough that only Rexus could hear. "You fight rules," he said quietly. "I fight gravity." He released the pin and stood. Rexus remained on the ground for a moment longer than he needed to. When he rose, the crowd did not erupt in outrage. It did not cheer. It waited. High above, Queen Vara stood. The motion was small, but it carried through the arena like a ripple in still water. Her expression was not fury. It was revelation. She descended from the royal platform via a slender anti-grav bridge that formed beneath her feet as she stepped forward. The bridge shimmered faintly, connecting her balcony to the arena floor. Rexus straightened as she approached. Dominic resisted the urge to wipe his hands on his trousers. Vera stopped at the edge of the ring. Up close, her presence felt less ceremonial and more precise. Her gaze moved from Rexus to Dominic and back again, evaluating not victory but implication. "You ended the match in under a minute," she said. Dominic inclined his head slightly. It seemed efficient. A faint murmur ran through the audience. Rexus spoke first. "He abandoned sanctioned form," the champion said. Dominic blinked. "I was not aware survival required paperwork." A few suppressed laughs echoed through the lower tiers. Vara's lips curved almost imperceptibly. "You used no enhancement," she observed. "No," Dominic replied. "Just alignment." "Alignment?" she repeated. He said lightly. Rexus bristled. Vera raised a hand subtly, silencing him. "You were trained on Terra," she said. "Yes." "In formal arenas?" "Occasionally." "And outside them?" Dominic met her gaze. "Yes." The answer carried more weight than volume. Vara studied him for a long moment. "Rexus has faced every approved discipline on Magnus," she said. He has never been defeated. Dominic glanced at the champion, who stood rigid, pride wounded but unbroken. Approved disciplines are predictable, Dominic said. Predictability is comfortable. And comfort, Vora asked softly, is dangerous? Dominic considered the question. It depends on what you expect to survive. The arena remained silent. Rexus's breathing steadied. His eyes, once sharpened with irritation, now held something else. Confusion. Understanding. Vera's long ears angled slightly forward again, catching nuance in Dominic's tone. You did not overpower him, she said. No. You destabilized him. Yes. She turned toward Rexus. You trained for perfection, she said to her champion. He trained for collapse. The words hung in the air like a new law. Dominic resisted the urge to comment that collapse was rarely optional. Instead, he folded his hands loosely behind his back. The arena, once built on spectacle and certainty, felt different now. Quieter. Deeper. Vera looked back at Dominic. Trainer Cole, she said, voice carrying across the proving ring without amplification. We will speak privately. Dominic nodded once. Of course, he said. He glanced at the timer display still hovering above the arena. 47 seconds. He allowed himself the smallest breath of dry humor. Next time, he muttered softly, I'll try to make it last longer. Rexus almost smiled, and somewhere within the roaring heart of Arena Magnus, the first true lesson had begun. The private chamber overlooking the grand proving ring was quieter than Dominic expected. From the arena floor, Arena Magnus had felt like a living engine. Crowds, energy fields, amplified voices. Here, behind reinforced transparent steel panels and subtle kinetic dampeners, the sound softened into a distant hum. The twin suns were lowering now, casting long bronze reflections across the city's metallic architecture. Dominic stood near the edge of the chamber, hands loosely clasped behind his back. He had been escorted here by guards who looked at him with something between suspicion and reluctant respect. Queen Vera entered without announcement. Up close, without the theatrical distance of the royal platform, she seemed more grounded. Her posture remained regal, but there was less performance in it. Her long ears curved back gently, catching the fading sunlight like sculpted arcs. Trainer Cole, she said. Your Majesty, he replied. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was not hostile. It was evaluative. You were invited to demonstrate, she said at last, not to dismantle. Dominic allowed himself the faintest smile. Rexus dismantled himself. Her gaze sharpened slightly. Explain. He pressed, Dominic said. Beyond demonstration, pride adjusted his timing. You provoked him. I allowed him to reveal his assumptions. She studied him carefully. You speak as though combat is conversation. It is, he said, mostly nonverbal. A faint, almost reluctant flicker of amusement crossed her face. Rexus has been undefeated for 7 cycles, she said. He has faced masters of every approved discipline. Yes, you defeated him in less than 1 minute. I disrupted him, Dominic corrected. You pinned him. I held him in a position gravity preferred. Her lips curved slightly despite herself. You reduce spectacle to physics, she observed. I reduce everything to physics, he replied. It simplifies arguments. She moved closer to the observation panel, looking down at the arena below, where technicians were recalibrating the ring's projection systems. You fought without ornament, she said quietly. Ornament slows reaction time. It inspires. It also telegraphs. She turned back to him. On Magnus, she said, combat is not merely survival, it is identity. Dominic inclined his head. On Terra, survival is identity. The words settled between them with more weight than either intended. She studied him for a long moment, as if assessing not his stance but the path that had shaped it. You learned outside arenas, she said. Yes. War? He shrugged slightly. Instability. She did not press further. Rexus believes you disrespected our discipline, she continued. I did not, Dominic replied calmly. I exposed its blind spot. And that blind spot is? Predictability. She folded her hands behind her back. You think Magnus warriors are predictable? I think they are exceptional within boundaries. Her long ears angled forward again, attentive. And outside boundaries? They hesitate. A subtle shift passed across her expression. Not denial, not anger. Recognition. You did not hesitate, she said. No. Even when Rexus escalated, especially then, she watched him carefully. Why? Dominic considered the question. Because escalation reveals intent, he said. Intent reveals structure. Once you see the structure, you don't need strength. Her gaze deepened. You speak like a strategist. I speak like someone who prefers to go home intact. The faintest hint of laughter escaped her, surprising them both. You are not impressed by our pageantry, she said. It's very well organized, he replied diplomatically. That was not my question. No, he admitted. I'm not impressed by spectacle. Then what impresses you? Adaptation. Silence again. Below them, Rexus stood at the edge of the arena floor, speaking with another warrior. His posture was rigid, but not shattered. You did not humiliate him, Vera observed. That was not my goal. You could have. Dominic shrugged. He will be more dangerous now. Because he lost? Because he will question himself. She watched Rexus carefully. Loss is rare here, she said. Loss is educational, Dominic replied. Is that how Terra views it? That's how gravity views it. She stepped closer to him now, close enough that he could see faint metallic threads woven into the fabric of her attire. Conductive fibers designed for subtle field stabilization. You destabilized more than a champion today, she said quietly. I suspected as much. You exposed a weakness in our system. Dominic tilted his head slightly. Every system has one. And you assume you see ours clearly. No, he said calmly. I assume I saw one fracture. She held his gaze. Would you have done the same on Terra, she asked, if your champion had dismissed my people's capability? Dominic allowed a small pause. Probably faster. A faint, involuntary smile touched her lips. You are candid. I prefer it. She turned again toward the arena, watching as Rexus finally looked up toward the royal chamber. For a heartbeat, his gaze met hers. Then he lowered his head slightly, not in shame, in acknowledgement. You did not fight for pride, she said. No. Then why? Dominic considered. Because he underestimated, he said. Underestimation gets people hurt. Her long ears tilted slightly back this time, a subtle shift that hinted at introspection. You believe I underestimated you, she said softly. I believe Magnus underestimated reality, he replied. And what is reality? That approved methods are not universal. She turned back to him fully now. And if I asked you, she said carefully, to teach outside approved methods? Dominic blinked once. That depends. On what? On whether you want spectacle, he said, or survival. The chamber felt smaller suddenly, as if the question itself had weight. I want strength, she said. You have strength. I want resilience. That was different. Dominic studied her, not as queen, not as symbol, but as someone genuinely assessing a flaw in her own system. Resilience requires discomfort, he said. I am not unfamiliar with discomfort, she replied evenly. He glanced toward the arena floor again. Neither is Rexus now. A quiet pause settled. Then she said, I am not asking for my champion. He looked at her. I am asking for myself. The words did not echo. They landed softly, deliberately. Dominic felt something shift, not in the air, but in expectation. You wish to train, he said. Yes. With me? Yes. He rubbed the back of his neck lightly. You understand, he said carefully, that I do not bow during sparring. I would not expect you to. I correct bluntly. I would require it. I will make you fall. She met his gaze without flinching. I will rise. For the first time since stepping onto Arena Magnus, Dominic felt something close to uncertainty, not fear, curiosity. You realize, he said slowly, that if this becomes public, your court will have opinions. They already do, she replied. And Rexus? Rexus will adapt, she said, or he will remain ornamental. A faint smirk tugged at Dominic's mouth. You are not ornamental, he said. She regarded him steadily. Neither are you, she replied. Outside, the twin suns dipped lower, casting the arena in deeper amber. And in the quiet chamber above the proving ring, something far more dangerous than a one-minute defeat had begun to take shape. A question not of dominance, but of transformation. The royal training chamber did not resemble the grand proving ring. There were no tiers of spectators, no hovering banners replaying past glories. The room was circular, quiet, and deliberately plain. Its walls were layered with adaptive alloy capable of absorbing kinetic impact. The floor responded subtly to pressure shifts, adjusting friction coefficients in real time. Above, a soft gravitic field ensured that any fall would be bruising, but not catastrophic. Dominic stood in the center of it, barefoot, arms loosely at his sides. Queen Vera entered without ceremony. She wore no crown, no ceremonial armor. Instead, she was dressed in fitted training attire similar in design to Dominic's, though woven with faint conductive threads that shimmered in the chamber's low light. Her long ears were unadorned, catching the glow of the overhead field as she stepped onto the mat. "You dismiss the guards," Dominic noted. "They are outside," she replied, observing, not intervening. He nodded once. "Good," he said. "I dislike an audience during correction." Her lips curved faintly. "I suspect you dislike audiences in general." "Correct." She moved to stand opposite him, posture balanced, shoulders squared. Even without armor, she carried herself like a sovereign, measured, contained. "Where do we begin?" she asked. "With falling," he said. She blinked. "Falling?" "Yes. I have fallen before." "Not intentionally." A subtle shift passed across her expression, half irritation, half curiosity. "Explain," she said. "You were trained to remain upright," he replied. "Magnus' discipline values dominance of position." "Yes. That makes you resistant to imbalance." "That seems desirable." "It makes you rigid." Her long ears tilted slightly forward, attentive. "Show me," she said. Dominic stepped closer. "Push me," he instructed. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then extended her palm and shoved at his shoulder with controlled force. He yielded, not dramatically, not theatrically. He stepped back, pivoted, and allowed his weight to carry him down to the mat in a smooth roll. The adaptive floor softened the impact. He rose immediately, fluid, centered. "You see," he said, "you retreated. I redirected. That is a matter of wording. It is a matter of ego." A faint, involuntary laugh escaped her. "You imply my ego is the obstacle. I imply your training resists loss of control." She stepped forward again. "Push me," she said. He obliged. His palm pressed against her shoulder, not violently, but with enough force to test structure. She braced instinctively, spine straightening, feet digging into the responsive surface. "Do not resist," he said. "Not resist," she repeated. "Allow." She frowned slightly. "That contradicts Magnus' principle." "Yes." He increased pressure subtly. Her muscles tightened further. "You see," he said, "you are fighting the floor." The chamber's gravitic field hummed faintly as her balance shifted. "Relax," he instructed. She exhaled through her nose, clearly annoyed. "This is not combat," she said. "It is preparation for it." He adjusted his angle slightly, shifting force off-center. This time she allowed the push to carry her weight backward. Her heels slipped on the adaptive floor. She fell, not hard. The gravitic dampeners absorbed most of the impact. But she was down. She lay there for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Dominic extended a hand. She ignored it and rose on her own. "You manipulated angle," she said. "Yes." "You did not overpower?" "No." She dusted invisible particles from her sleeve. "That was inelegant." "Efficient," he corrected. She stepped forward again, eyes sharper now. "Again," she said. This time, when he pushed, she did not lock her joints. She allowed the shift. Her foot pivoted slightly. Her weight rotated. She still fell, but not flat. She rolled, mimicking his earlier movement. The adaptive floor cushioned her. She rose more quickly this time. Dominic nodded once. "Better." A faint spark of satisfaction flickered across her face. "You smile when progress appears," she observed. "I smile when collapse becomes optional." She stepped closer. "Your methods lack ceremony." "Ceremony slows reaction time." That phrase again. "It remains accurate." She lunged without warning. The movement was quick, refined Magnus form, but stripped of some ornament. Dominic slipped to the side, redirecting her arm. She adjusted mid-motion, surprising him slightly. He hooked his foot lightly behind hers. She anticipated the imbalance this time and let her weight drop intentionally. They both fell. The chamber's gravitic field compensated, preventing injury. For a moment, they lay side by side on the mat. The silence felt different here. Less charged, more focused. "You anticipated," he said. "Yes." "You allowed imbalance." "Yes." She turned her head slightly toward him. "It feels counterintuitive," she admitted. "It should." She pushed herself up to seated position. "Magnus warriors are trained never to concede ground," she said. "Then they panic when ground disappears." Her long ears tilted back slightly, thoughtful. "You fight as though loss is not shame," she said. "It isn't. It is here. That can change." She looked at him carefully. "You defeated Rexus in 47 seconds, she said. "Do you believe you could do the same now?" He considered. "No." Her brow lifted slightly. "Why?" "Because he will not fight the same way." She exhaled slowly. "So, defeat reshapes." "Yes." She rose to her feet. "And you believe Magnus must reshape." "I believe Magnus must expand." A faint smile touched her lips. "You are careful with wording. I prefer systems to remain intact." She moved closer again. "Push me," she said. He did. She yielded, pivoted, rolled, rose. This time her balance held longer before collapse. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the training cycle timer adjusted. Sweat gathered lightly at her temples. "You are not gentle," she observed. "You are not fragile." Her gaze locked onto his. "I am queen," she said. "In here," he replied calmly. "You are a student." A flicker of irritation passed through her. Then it softened. "Again," she said. They moved. Push, yield, redirect, fall, rise. Each repetition stripped a layer of rigid perfection from her stance. Each correction chipped away at ornamental dominance and replaced it with something quieter. Resilience. At one point, she stumbled more awkwardly than before, landing harder against the adaptive floor. Dominic crouched beside her. "You hesitated," he said. "I calculated," she corrected. "Too long." She exhaled sharply. "Calculation is survival. Instinct is faster." She met his gaze. "And instinct must be trained." "Yes." A faint, breathless laugh escaped her. "You are relentless. So is gravity." They stood again. Outside the chamber, the palace corridors hummed softly, unaware that inside a quiet training room, the ruler of Arena Magnus was learning how to fall. And for the first time in many cycles, she did not fear the ground. By the sixth private session, word had spread. Arena Magnus did not need official announcements. It thrived on observation. Warriors noticed patterns in movement the way scholars noticed patterns in data. The queen's altered footwork during a public inspection. The faint bruising along her forearm concealed beneath formal sleeves. The way her stance shifted, less rigid, more fluid. Rexus noticed first. He entered the training chamber without armor, though he wore the insignia of his lineage across his shoulders. The adaptive floor adjusted automatically to his weight, gravitic sensors mapping his posture. Dominic was already there, recalibrating the chamber's resistance settings. "You are interfering with tradition," Rexus said without greeting. Dominic did not look up. "I am interfering with predictability," he replied. Rexus's jaw tightened slightly. "You humiliated me." "No," Dominic said calmly. "I corrected you." A faint hum filled the room as the gravitic dampeners recalibrated. Rexus stepped forward. "I was undefeated. You were untested." Silence. The doors at the far end of the chamber slid open. Queen Vera entered. Her attire was again practical, though the fabric bore faint ceremonial threading, signaling that she had come directly from council proceedings. Her long ears angled slightly forward as she assessed the room. "Rexus," she said evenly. "My queen. You requested audience." "I request instruction," he said. Dominic finally looked up. "From me?" he asked lightly. Rexus's gaze flicked toward him. "Yes." The word carried weight. Vera remained silent, observing. Dominic straightened. "You wish to understand how you fell," he said. "Yes. You will fall again." Rexus nodded once. I accept that. A faint shift of approval passed through Vera's expression. Very well, Dominic said. Remove the insignia. Rexus hesitated only briefly before unclasping the shoulder emblem and setting it aside. In here, Dominic continued, titles slow reaction time. Rexus glanced once toward Vera. She gave the smallest nod. Rexus stepped into stance. Dominic did not. Attack, Dominic said. Rexus lunged, not with spectacle, but with measured force. His form was cleaner than before, less ornamental. Dominic met him at the center line, redirecting the first strike. Rexus adjusted mid-motion, attempting to trap Dominic's wrist. Dominic slipped free, shifting weight subtly. Too linear, he murmured. Rexus pivoted, attempting a sweep. Dominic stepped into it rather than away, pressing lightly at Rexus's hip. The champion staggered, but did not fall. He recovered faster this time. Dominic's eyebrow lifted faintly. Better, he said. Rexus attacked again, incorporating what he had observed. Less commitment to a single path, more readiness to shift. Dominic responded with equal adaptability. They moved in a tight circle, breath steady, feet whispering against the adaptive floor. Rexus feinted high, then dropped low. Dominic anticipated, but this time the imbalance was smaller. Rexus nearly trapped his ankle. Nearly. Dominic disengaged. Again, Rexus said, breath controlled but intense. Vera watched from the edge of the chamber, arms folded loosely behind her back. Her gaze moved not just between strikes, but between shifts in intention. The next exchange lasted longer. 20 seconds, 30, 40. Rexus's movements grew less rigid, more responsive. Dominic felt it. The champion was not clinging to perfection now. He was adjusting. Then Rexus made a choice. Instead of resisting Dominic's push, he allowed it. He yielded. Dominic's balance shifted unexpectedly. Rexus attempted to redirect in return. For a fraction of a second, they both teetered at the edge of collapse. Then gravity claimed them. They hit the floor almost simultaneously. The dampeners softened the impact. Silence. Rexus rolled to his knees first. Dominic remained on his back for a moment longer, staring up at the ceiling. Progress, he said mildly. Rexus exhaled sharply. I felt the shift, he admitted. You stopped fighting the floor. Yes. Vera stepped forward slightly. And, she asked. Rexus looked at her, not as subordinate, but as student. And I hesitated, he said. Dominic sat up. Why? He asked. Rexus hesitated again. Because yielding feels like defeat. Dominic nodded. On Terra, he said, yielding is often survival. Rexus's gaze hardened slightly, not in resistance, but in contemplation. Vera moved closer now, her presence steady. Magnus defines strength as dominance, she said quietly. And dominance, Dominic added, assumes control. Rexus looked between them. And if control is illusion, he asked. Dominic smiled faintly. Then adaptability is strength. The words settled into the chamber like a new law being drafted. Rexus stood slowly. I wish to spar publicly, he said. Vara's ears angled forward. Publicly? She repeated. Yes, he said. Under your observation. Not to reclaim status, to demonstrate adjustment. Dominic tilted his head slightly. You understand that you may fall again? Yes. And the arena will witness it? Yes. A faint spark of approval passed through Dominic's eyes. Vara regarded her champion carefully. Magnus honors courage, she said. Then let Magnus witness humility, Rexus replied. The chamber felt smaller for a moment, not from tension, but from possibility. Dominic rose to his feet. You are learning, he said. Rexus inclined his head slightly. You are infuriating, he replied. Dominic almost laughed. I have been told. Vera's lips curved faintly. Prepare the arena, she said. Rexus stepped toward the exit, retrieving his insignia but not reattaching it. As the doors closed behind him, the chamber grew quiet again. Vera turned to Dominic. You dismantle systems gently, she said. I prefer systems that survive. She studied him for a moment. Magnus will not transform in a day. It doesn't need to, he replied. It only needs to bend. Her long ears tilted slightly back, thoughtful. "And you?" she asked. "Are you bending?" Dominic considered. "I am standing," he said. She stepped closer, not as sovereign but as equal within the training circle. "You remain," she said quietly. "For now," he answered. Outside, Arena Magnus continued its restless hum. But beneath the spectacle and tradition, something had shifted. Not broken, not conquered, recalibrated. The public rematch was announced without fanfare. No triumphant music, no dramatic holographic countdown. Just a statement transmitted across Arena Magnus. Exhibition of adaptive combat. Attendance encouraged. The phrasing alone unsettled half the planet. Dominic stood once again in the grand proving ring, barefoot on polished stone beneath the gravitic dome. The twin suns were higher this time, casting sharper light across the arena tiers. The crowd was larger than before, not because they expected spectacle, but because they expected tension. Rexus entered without ceremonial armor. That alone caused a murmur. He wore training attire, simple and unadorned. His lineage insignia was absent. His posture was steady, but different, less rigid, less carved from stone. Queen Vera observed from the royal platform, not elevated above all others, but positioned at the same tier as the senior council. Her long ears angled slightly forward, absorbing every shift in the arena's energy. Dominic rolled his shoulders once. "You look less decorative," he said conversationally as Rexus approached. "You look equally unimpressed," Rexus replied. "That is my default expression." A faint ripple of restrained laughter moved through the lower seats. The signal tone chimed. They circled. This time, Rexus did not rush. He stepped in carefully, testing distance without committing. His weight shifted subtly, probing for reaction. Dominic waited. Rexus feinted high. Dominic did not bite. Rexus shifted low. Dominic adjusted. The exchange was slower than before, but heavier, not with aggression, with awareness. Rexus struck. Dominic redirected. Rexus yielded. Dominic paused. The arena screens magnified the subtlety. Two combatants studying not strength, but timing. "You're thinking," Dominic said lightly. "Yes." "Good." Rexus lunged suddenly, not in straight line, but at an angle learned from private sessions. His shoulder dipped under Dominic's center line, attempting to destabilize rather than dominate. Dominic felt the shift. He allowed it. Rexus pressed, guiding the imbalance further. For a fraction of a second, Dominic's heel slipped. The crowd inhaled sharply. Dominic pivoted. They rotated together, a controlled spiral of shifting weight. Then gravity claimed both of them. They hit the floor nearly simultaneously. No pin, no dominance indicator, just a shared fall. The arena was silent. Rexus rolled to his knees first. Dominic followed. They stood facing each other again. The timer read 0031. "You changed," Dominic said. "Yes." "You allowed imbalance." "Yes." Rexus attacked again, this time blending Magnus form with Terra pragmatism. His movements were less ornamental, more reactive. He did not commit to a single strike. He layered options. Dominic responded in kind. The exchange lasted longer this time. 40 seconds, 50. Sweat gathered along Rexus's brow. Dominic's breathing deepened slightly. Rexus attempted a sweep. Dominic stepped inside. Rexus yielded. Dominic shifted. For a heartbeat, Dominic found himself off-center. Rexus capitalized. He pressed lightly at Dominic's shoulder and hip simultaneously, guiding the imbalance. Dominic hit the ground first. The arena screens flashed a brief dominance signal. The crowd gasped. Rexus did not press advantage. He stepped back instead. Dominic blinked up at the sky. "Well," he muttered, "that's inconvenient." The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in stunned exhilaration. Dominic rolled to his feet, brushing dust from his shoulder. "Why didn't you pin?" he asked. Rexus met his gaze. "Because I felt the shift," he said, "and I chose to stop." Dominic studied him for a long moment. "Good," he said quietly. They circled once more. This time the exchange was shorter. Rexus attacked. Dominic redirected. Rexus yielded. Dominic pivoted. In a final sequence of intertwined movement, they collapsed together again, balanced on the edge of advantage and restraint. The signal tone chimed, marking the end of the demonstration. No clear victor, no humiliation. The arena held its breath. Queen Vera rose. She descended the anti-grav bridge with deliberate calm, stepping into the ring between them. She looked first at Rexus. "You adapted," she said. "Yes, my queen." "You fell." "Yes." "And you rose." "Yes." She turned to Dominic. "You were destabilized." "Yes," he admitted. "You smiled." "I tend to." A faint curve touched her lips. She addressed the arena. "Magnus honors strength," she said, voice carrying effortlessly across the vast structure. "Today we honor adaptability." The words rippled outward. "Our champion has learned to yield without surrender," she continued. "Our guest has demonstrated that survival is not spectacle." Dominic shifted slightly, uncomfortable with collective attention. She glanced at him. "You stand comfortably in imbalance now," she observed. He shrugged lightly. "I've had practice." Rexus stepped forward unexpectedly. "I request formal acknowledgement," he said. Vera inclined her head. "Speak." "Trainer Dominic Cole did not defeat Magnus," Rexus said clearly. "He revealed its next form." The arena grew still. Dominic resisted the urge to look at the floor. "That's dramatic," he muttered under his breath. Rexus almost smiled. Vera's long ears tilted slightly back, thoughtful. "Magnus evolves," she declared, "not by conquest but by correction." Applause began, not thunderous, not forced, measured, respectful. Dominic glanced up at the royal platform where council members watched with varying degrees of approval and apprehension. "Your world bends," he said quietly to Vera. "It must," she replied. He studied her. "And you?" he asked. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I am learning to fall." He huffed a faint laugh. "That is rarely comfortable." "No," she agreed, "but it is necessary." Rexus stepped back, reclaiming his place not as untouchable icon, but as evolving warrior. The gravitic dome shimmered faintly overhead as the twin suns shifted in their arcs. Dominic looked around the arena, not at the spectacle, but at the faces. Warriors who had seen something unexpected. Citizens who had witnessed their champion fall and rise without shame. He felt something unfamiliar. Not victory, not conquest, impact. "You are staying," Vera said quietly beside him. It was not a question. He hesitated. The crowd's noise softened into distant hum. "Maybe," he said. Her gaze held steady. "Magnus requires instructors who are willing to be destabilized." He exhaled slowly. "I don't do statues," he said. "We do not need statues," she replied. "We need teachers." He looked back at Rexus, who was speaking with younger warriors now, demonstrating the subtle pivot that had nearly toppled Dominic. The shift had begun, and for the first time since stepping onto Arena Magnus, Dominic did not feel like an outsider correcting a flaw. He felt like part of a system adjusting itself. "Fine," he muttered, "but I still dislike ceremony." Vera's faint smile returned. "Then we will minimize it." Above them, the gravitic dome shimmered as the suns burned on, and within the heart of a world built on dominance, adaptability had taken its first public breath. Arena Magnus did not quiet overnight. Transformation rarely announces itself with silence. It arrives disguised as repetition. Weeks after the public rematch, the Grand Proving Ring continued to host demonstrations. But something subtle had changed. The matches were still precise, still disciplined, yet beneath the ornament, there was hesitation where there once had been blind commitment. Warriors yielded a fraction earlier. They pivoted instead of locking. They tested imbalance instead of denying it. Dominic stood at the edge of the training floor, arms folded, watching a pair of Magnus cadets circle one another. "Too rigid," he called out. One of the cadets scowled. "You say that to everyone," she replied. "Yes," Dominic said, "because most of you are." The cadet lunged at her partner, overcommitting. Her opponent slipped aside and tapped her shoulder lightly. She blinked, startled. Dominic nodded once. "Good. Now do it again without resentment." From the elevated balcony overlooking the chamber, Queen Vera observed the session. Her attire was ceremonial today, though simplified. No excessive ornamentation, only subtle reinforcement threads woven into deep indigo fabric. Her long ears caught the ambient light, angled slightly forward as she followed each exchange with careful attention. Rexus stood beside her. "He has altered the tempo of the entire academy," Rexus said quietly. "Yes," Vera replied. "He undermines pride without humiliating. That is rare." Below them, Dominic crouched to correct a cadet's stance, tapping lightly at her ankle. "You're fighting the floor again," he said. "I am not," she insisted. "You are." He nudged her heel slightly, and she nearly lost balance. She scowled. "Unfair." "Gravity doesn't negotiate," he replied. Rexus allowed himself a faint smile. "He is infuriating," he said. "Yes," Vera agreed softly, "and necessary." When the session ended, the cadets dispersed in clusters of exhausted discussion. Dominic wiped sweat from his brow and glanced toward the balcony. He had grown accustomed to her presence there. Not distant, not ornamental. Observing, learning. She descended the steps without guards this time. "You corrected 12 errors," she said as she approached. 13, he replied. "One of them was mine." Her brow lifted slightly. "You misjudged timing on the second pair." "I noticed," she said. "Good." They walked side by side across the empty training floor. "Rexus has integrated your methods into formal instruction," she said. "I saw. He teaches yielding as phase transition rather than surrender." Dominic nodded faintly. "That will preserve pride." "It already has," she said. They reached the center of the chamber. "Your council no longer resists," he observed. "They resist less," she corrected. "Change requires repetition." "So does falling," he said. Her lips curved slightly. "You have not fallen recently," she noted. "That is because you have improved." She studied him carefully. "You speak as though you plan to leave." He hesitated. Arena Magnus hummed beyond the walls, a planet alive with controlled violence in evolving discipline. "I was invited as demonstration," he said. "Demonstrations end." "And evolution?" she asked. "That continues." Silence settled between them. She stepped closer. "You came here as a correction," she said quietly. "You remain as structure." He exhaled slowly. "I did not intend to stay. I did not intend to ask." Her long ears tilted slightly back, uncertain for once. He noticed. "You're off balance," he said gently. "Am I?" "Yes," she almost smiled. "That is your influence." He looked around the chamber, the adaptive floor, the subtle gravitic hum, the faint scuff marks from repeated training sessions. "When I arrived," and he said, "I saw perfection pretending to be invincible. And now? I see resilience learning to bend." She met his gaze. "And you?" she asked. He paused. "I thought teaching here would require me to remain outside it," he admitted. "Detached. And I am less detached." Her expression softened. "That unsettles you." "Yes." "Good." He huffed a faint laugh. "You enjoy destabilizing me." "I enjoy balance," she corrected. Footsteps echoed from the corridor. Rexus entered, carrying a small data slate. "The Academy has requested authorization," he said. "They wish to establish a new division." Dominic groaned quietly. "That sounds official." Rexus ignored him. "They propose naming it the Adaptive Doctrine." Dominic blinked. "Please tell me that is not in my honor." "It is not," Rexus replied evenly. "It is in Magnus's." Dominic exhaled in relief. "Good." Vera took the slate, reviewing the proposal. "It integrates Terra principles into Magnus structure," she said. "Not Terra principles," Dominic corrected. "Universal ones." She nodded once. "Then Magnus will claim them." Rexus inclined his head slightly. "With your permission, my queen." She handed the slate back. "Granted." Rexus turned to leave, then paused. "Trainer," he said. Dominic looked up. "You destabilized me," Rexus said. "I am grateful." Dominic shrugged lightly. "You did the work." Rexus inclined his head once more and departed. The chamber fell quiet again. "You have changed him," Vera said softly. "He changed himself. You gave him imbalance, and he chose not to resent it." She stepped closer, close enough that he could see faint bruising along her forearm from earlier training. "You have changed me," she said. He studied her stance. You fall better, he replied, and rise faster. Yes. Her gaze held his. Will you remain? The question was not framed as command. It was balance offered. He looked beyond her, imagining Arena Magnus continuing without him, the Academy refining its doctrine, Rex's teaching yielding without shame, Vera guiding evolution instead of clinging to perfection. He felt something settle within him. When he had first stepped into the proving ring, he had fought as outsider correcting arrogance. Now he stood as part of a system reshaping itself. I will remain, he said at last. For a while. Her shoulders eased slightly. A while, she repeated. Yes. He tilted his head. But if statues appear, they will not, she assured him. I will destabilize them. She laughed softly. I would expect nothing less. Above them, the twin suns shifted behind the gravitic dome, casting long lines of light across the training floor. Dominic extended a hand. Push me, he said. She blinked once. In formal attire? Yes. She stepped forward and pressed her palm against his shoulder. He yielded, pivoted, fell. She followed, rolling cleanly beside him. They lay on the adaptive floor, staring up at the shimmer of the dome far above. You still smile when you fall, she said. I know I will rise, he replied. She turned her head slightly toward him. So will Magnus. Outside, the planet's arenas roared with disciplined motion. Inside, two figures lay briefly on the ground, balanced not by dominance, but by shared understanding. And when they rose, it was not to conquer. It was to continue.